Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Matt Lemon. I'm the CISO for Huawei, the CISO and VP for Cybersecurity. Probably everybody knows what we do, but Huawei, apart from making devices like this, we make tops, we make 5G, 6G, 4G kit, and all of that stuff falls under my remit. So. Artificial intelligence and machine learning has historically been kind of a niche or a marketing product. I used to work previously for IBM. So on the right there, you can see at the top our first attempt at artificial intelligence, which was Deep Blue, which they built to beat Garry Kasparov at chess, which it did. And then the second iteration underneath, IBM Watson, which was developed and I think was what won Jeopardy, then turned into a commercial product for health systems and lots of other things. But I have seen both of those systems, and they're both huge. They take up a lot of room, they take a lot of engineers. But now we're moving into a thing where artificial intelligence and machine learning are now really hot topics in cybersecurity, which is why everyone is here. So what do they offer? What are the shortcomings that we need to overcome if we're going to use them? And what we need to be aware of as we build solutions that leverage AI or machine learning going forwards. So as I said, I'm a CISO. I'm from a very technical background, but that was a long time ago. So a lot of my technical skills are, pushed down to the guys and girls that work for me. So CISOs have to kind of be experts or able to hold conversations in lots of different areas. But as part of the company's exec team, we build teams of really highly skilled people to manage things like the SOC, like the GRC, to do pen testing, and now I'm also hiring machine learning and AI engineers. So AI and machine learning is also something that I need to educate myself about because I understand from a conceptual perspective and I understand what we're doing. But a lot of CISOs or security leaders need to get educated more about what AI and machine learning is. So, attacks. One of the main problems today that most of the security vendors that I see and talk to have is that they're looking at activity and traffic in a kind of binary perspective or binary fashion. Traffic is either good traffic or it's bad traffic. An endpoint is a known endpoint or it's an unknown endpoint. And if the traffic or the endpoint matches the rules that are already defined by this piece of software or tool, then it's allowed through or it's rejected. There's no middle ground. And this type of protection is becoming easier and easier to bypass because I often refer to security as like an arms race. We put tools in, and then the attackers try to figure out ways around it, and then we have to improve our tools, and they figure ways around that. So this is becoming easier to bypass, and it's becoming harder for us to find new tools that can combat that. And when when an attacker is inside, and it's not unheard of for an attacker to be inside for 6 months or more, then there are fewer defenses within that network. We've historically spent more looking at the perimeter of the network than inside. That is changing. But when somebody is in, if they're undetected, they have a lot of time to do reconnaissance, to look for vulnerabilities, and decide what they are going to exploit. so they can take, they're aware of the detection techniques that we use. They know the vendors that we use, and who's on the market, what those solutions can do. So the security teams, in particular SOC, are putting together very small pieces of information to try and understand what's going on within our network. The problem with that is that job is extremely hard. You need really skilled people to understand what abnormal traffic or data looks like. Those people are expensive, and it's very labor intensive. So, if there is something that we can use that can help, then that helps us reduce costs, helps with our time to respond and that kind of stuff. So what is the current state? My opinion is that machine learning is one of the most powerful tools that a company can use to detect these type of kind of low and slow attacks where somebody is in your network for an extended period of time before they do damage. But I don't think that we can ever produce the silver bullet that will be a solution for all of cybersecurity. That doesn't mean that I'm kind of down on AI or machine learning. I don't see this yet. There's always going to be a person, a process, or a procedure somewhere in there, and there are going to be vulnerabilities in both the technology and the security systems that we can't predict. If we can't predict them, then we can't fix them. So it's unrealistic to expect perfection. And artificial intelligence, just like human intelligence, is always going to be imperfect. Maybe not always, but for the time being. At present, the solution space is dominated by machine learning, and I see vendors to present solutions to us that are based on the analysis of historical patterns, what has happened on the network in the past, what users have done in the past, and to try then to predict what they're going to do or what abnormal behavior is once they have a baseline. It is a form of AI that learns and makes judgments without needing to be explicitly programmed for every particular scenario. Unlike the signature-based, I suppose the older antivirus solutions that you have to keep downloading the updates for, the signature updates. Machine learning learns, obviously. AI and machine learning learns from the data that we have, creates big data sets that it can use to go and analyze what traffic is abnormal and what user behavior is abnormal. And they can provide us a probability of whether particular traffic or user activity is legitimate. Some of the pitfalls. Given the lack of rules that there are that cyber attackers use, which is probably zero, the job of machine learning is extremely challenging. We're trying to define rules for artificial systems to respond to something where there are no rules. The bad actors, the malicious actors, they don't have a playbook. There aren't a set of rules. So it's extremely difficult to match what you're trying to train an AI system or a machine learning system with what is actually happening. And something I mentioned on the panel earlier, we have to guard against an over-reliance on machine learning. Also, the belief that it protects us against everything that we can think of or that we can come up with, and everything that the bad actors or malicious actors can exploit. Machine learning is never going to catch all the anomalies or all of the zero-day or new attack vectors that someone from outside our organization might see, because that's their job. That's their job, is to find these 0 days and find ways into networks. So I think the thing is that not to oversell machine learning and AI in cybersecurity solutions. Now, I don't mean from vendors. Vendors are going to tell us the best points of their products. I'm thinking more about people like me. When I go to my boss or I go to legal or privacy and I say, oh, there's this great new tool and it's going to stop all breaches. That's not going to happen. But people, security leaders are often, in that position where somebody kind of backs them into a corner, and if you're not careful, you can overpromise. So I think we need to not oversell the whole AI solutions. And if we can accept that we're working in a system that doesn't have any rules, then does it make sense to use specific rules in setting up machine learning? One of the other things is it's also important that machine learning isn't given so much access that it does something that could have a negative effect on your network, on your data, and there are certain use cases, for example, where the impact of a wrong decision is within your risk appetite, where using AI is fine, because if it's within your risk appetite, then if the AI makes a wrong decision, you can back out of it, you can fix it, and that's causes you a bit of a but it's not the end of the world. But in other situations where there's a new attack pattern, a 0-day, things like that, then the machine shouldn't be expected to make the judgment call. What I would say is that we use those kind of scenarios. We use the AI as kind of something to decision support, so that it can do all the analysis, come up with a hypothesis, and then it can alert a human, so that person can make the judgment call to see whether it thinks that the information that it's getting from the AI system is legit, in which case that helps to improve the AI, or whether it's there are some errors in there and we don't allow the AI to make any changes or to do anything in that instance. So what should we be doing? I think we should use AI and machine learning as much as we can to automate protection against known attacks. The scenarios that I mentioned earlier, where they are relatively low risk, until we can build a level of confidence and assurance with whatever tool we're using. Security CISOs are inherently risk averse because there's so much that we have to look after and so much that can go wrong, that we have to kind of build up trust in whatever the tool is or whatever the system is that we're using. And it's the same with staff. You hire smart people and you trust them unless they give you a reason not to. So we can combine the explicit rules that are set out with business and technology, and to augment the security experts with machine learning, which is what I mentioned before, the decision support. So we know what the rules are for our business and technology, what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. And the AI can help in making decisions on that, because those rules are very very binary. You can do this and you can't do that. So we can implement explicit rules that prevent the business rules from being. So we can implement explicit expert rules that prevent business rules from being exploited and suspicious actions from going on. The most popular use of of machine learning, and it's one of the core capabilities, is in a category that Gartner called user and entity behavior analytics, or UBA, user behavior analytics. That's one of the most common that I see and we actually use. So UBA solutions can be used on their own. They can be standalone products, or you can use them with things that you have already put into place, which is, if you've got a SIEM and you're taking logs from and everywhere, you can get your UBA system to talk to that, to look at all those logs and figure out what is good behavior, what is normal behavior, and when it thinks that a user is doing something that they shouldn't. So that just leverages the investment that you've already made. And finally, what are we doing with it? So Huawei, we use it for several things. User behavior analytics, that's one of the big things. Preventing internal attacks, whether they are deliberate or accidental. We also use it with our email. So we have a system that trawls through people's email for, say, the last 3 months. And when you send an email out, it looks at who you're sending it to and who else is copied and what attachments you're sending. And by going through your historical email, it has built up a pattern of what usual behavior is with email. So if I send half of the room an email once a month with a particular report, and then all of a sudden I add on the other half of the room to the same report, it's going to pop up a message and say, look, you don't usually add these people into this email, are you sure? Or if you with email, the autocomplete, if you have several Matt Lemons in your email address, which is in your contact list, which is unlikely, then it's going to ask you, are you sure it's this one? SOC, we use it for automation, we use it for decision support, as I've covered. One of the key things that we use it for is fraud prevention. So part of what we do is we have an app store similar to Google Play and Apple. Samsung have one as well, so it's not unusual. And that picture on the right is actually a click farm. So each one of those, it's a bit difficult to see when you don't know what you're looking at, but each one of those things is a legit cell phone, and they're connected to a laptop or a server that its sole job is to go off and click on the apps to download them, to write reviews, and that obviously is fraudulent because they're not legit reviews, and the number of downloads for a particular app will go up, and it helps to get developers' apps to the top of the list. We also use it for protecting consumer accounts. So in this same method, so we look at whether things are coming from click farms, whether they're coming from simulators and so on. So those are kind of the key things, and that's me. So if there are any questions, I'll be around, and thank you very much for your time.